The Trinary Accord had held the galaxy together for 72 standard years. It wasn't perfect. No treaty ever was, but it prevented annihilation. Under its fragile umbrella, thousands of worlds traded, negotiated, and coexisted in wary peace. Humanity had joined only 2 decades ago, still young on a galactic stage, but surprisingly effective as intermediaries. Where older races had grown cold with time, humans burned with restless intensity. The galaxy noticed. Ambassador Elias didn't rise through charm or manipulation. He earned his place through results. Once a strategist in Earth's Orbital Defense Corps, he turned his mind toward diplomacy after witnessing a battlefield too soaked in blood to forget. He didn't want humanity to repeat the same mistakes in the stars. His voice carried weight not because it was loud, but because it refused to tremble. Then came the silence. A Terran outpost on the border of Imperial space went dark. No warning, no distress call. Sensors caught a burst of exotic radiation, then nothing. 3 days later, 6 neutral systems were overrun. The Galactic Empire had mobilized, not in defense, but conquest. Entire planetary governments were vaporized. Civilian ships were intercepted and boarded. Treaties burned in the air before stunned delegates. Peace had shattered. Elias stood before the Terran assembly as storm clouds gathered beyond Earth's orbit. The chamber, filled with ambassadors and analysts, buzzed with fear. Panic disguised as strategy echoed in hushed arguments. Proposals ranged from immediate retaliation to complete withdrawal from galactic politics. Everyone waited for Earth's military to roar, but it didn't. Elias asked for the floor. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't strike the podium. He simply asked a question. If we let this stand, what are we? Silence followed. He continued. We didn't claw our way into the stars to become another obedient planet in someone else's empire. But neither did we come to rule through war. We came with words. So let them be the last thing we try, before the first missile launches. The assembly hesitated, then voted. The result was narrow, but decisive. Elias was granted full authority. He would go alone, as the final envoy of peace, with unrestricted command to speak for Earth. One chance, one voice. A small diplomatic cruiser was prepped within hours. It bore no weapons, no shields beyond navigational deflectors. It flew under the white and blue banner of the Accord, tattered now, but still recognized. Elias boarded with a satchel of documents, a translator module, and a sealed message from the assembly. As the cruiser departed orbit, a young pilot glanced at him. Why you, she asked. He answered without turning. Because I don't flinch when I'm outgunned. They jumped into hyperspace before sunrise. The journey took 3 days. The Empire had withdrawn all diplomatic channels, but left open a corridor, clearly expecting someone. The implication was obvious. Come groveling or come burning. Elias chose neither. He arrived at the edge of the Threxian belt, where the Empire's world ship floated like a continent carved from metal. The vessel was impossibly massive, capable of blotting out stars. Elias transmitted his clearance and received a single word in response. Proceed. Inside, the air felt heavier, though gravity remained stable. Imperial guards flanked the hallways, faces hidden behind obsidian masks. Not a single word of welcome was offered. He was led through cathedral-scale corridors, past thrones of alien stone and steel, toward a chamber that reeked of ceremony and threat. At its center stood High Chancellor Varazor. The Chancellor's voice rumbled like tectonic plates grinding. Human, you come not as an ambassador, but as a relic. Speak your piece, so I may discard it. Elias didn't bow. You've broken the accord. Innocents died. Allies betrayed. Explain yourself. Varazor laughed. Explain? To you? This galaxy bends to those who seize it. We tire of waiting. Peace was weakness, your kind's most contagious disease. Elias stepped forward. Then let me infect you. The Chancellor paused, head tilting slightly. You bring no army, no fleet, only arrogance. I bring the words you fear, Elias said, because they make others think, and thought is poison to tyranny. A hiss echoed through the chamber. The guards tensed, but Varazor raised a hand. You seek an audience. You have it. You'll have one chance to convince me not to reduce Earth to ash. Use it. Elias nodded once. I intend to. The Chancellor turned away. You'll speak tomorrow, in front of the council. Speak well, or speak last. As Elias was escorted to temporary quarters, his mind turned not to strategy, but memory, of Earth, of its fractured past and stubborn hope. He had not come to beg. He had come to remind the Empire of something it had forgotten. That peace is not given. It's kept. And when broken, the voice that answers might just belong to a human who refuses to bow. The world ship's inner sanctum was colder than Elias expected. Not temperature, atmosphere. Every hallway whispered judgment. The Empire had built this floating monstrosity not merely as a vessel, but as a statement, power made manifest. Every inch screamed of conquest. The guards didn't speak. The officials didn't blink. Eyes behind masks tracked him like prey. They expected fear. He gave them silence. Imperial culture was older than human history itself, but it had calcified. Theirs was a hierarchy of obedience, forged through dominance and brutality. They didn't negotiate, they issued ultimatums. Every other species had either fallen in line or been reduced to rubble. And yet, here was Elias, small, unarmed, and thoroughly unimpressed. The council chamber was an amphitheater of shadow and steel. Around him sat the highest echelons of the Empire's ruling caste, warlords, strategists, overseers. Each bore different physiology, but identical posture, superiority. High Chancellor Varazor took the central throne. His voice boomed. The human may speak. Elias stepped forward, posture straight, eyes unyielding. You've broken every word ever written in good faith. You've declared war without naming it. You've chosen fear as your currency. I am here to tell you, it won't buy obedience. A low murmur rolled through the council. Varazor leaned in. Obedience is not bought. It's taken. Your species gambled on words. We bet on silence. Look who's still standing. Elias didn't smile. Your silence is a temporary illusion. You mistake absence of resistance for loyalty. A counselor spoke. You are bold for one so easily crushed. I'm not here to be safe, Elias answered. I'm here to be clear. He paused, then addressed them all. You believe strength is measured by force projection, by ship count, by yield and distance. But strength is also measured by what a civilization refuses to become, what it resists, even at cost. Varazor interrupted. You speak as if ideals are weapons. They are, Elias replied, because they outlast empires. The Chancellor's amusement faded. You misunderstand your position, human. You have no leverage. You have no support. Your words echo into irrelevance. Then why are you listening? Elias asked. The silence was sharp. He continued. You pretend to tolerate me as sport, but somewhere in this chamber, someone's wondering, why didn't Earth retaliate immediately? Why send one man? Why give us the stage? No one responded. Elias kept going. We did it because we understand something you don't. The first shot doesn't win the war. The first idea does. A younger official, less seasoned, less composed, snapped, we could execute you now. Elias looked at him. Yes, and that's what makes you weak. The official rose. Explain. You think killing ends opposition. It doesn't. It spreads it. Kill me, and you martyr the very thing you're trying to extinguish. Spare me, and people might still believe you capable of reason. The Chancellor stood, slow and deliberate. This discussion is over. No, Elias said. This discussion is just beginning. Because for the first time, your empire has encountered someone who refuses to speak your language and insists you learn his. There was movement, not violence, but tension, as if gravity had shifted in the chamber. The Chancellor's eyes burned, but he didn't strike. Instead, he gestured. The guard stepped back. You have until tomorrow, Varazor said. Then we decide whether Earth deserves memory or oblivion. Elias bowed his head slightly, not in submission, but acknowledgement. As he turned to leave, he caught flickers of uncertainty in the room. The smallest crack in their absolute certainty. That was all he needed. In the corridors, he was escorted by silence. The guards walked with machine-like precision, but even they showed subtle hesitation now. One flinched when Elias turned too quickly. Another's gaze lingered a beat longer than protocol allowed. The message was spreading, not through message relays, but through discomfort, through doubt. Alone in his quarters, Elias reviewed nothing. He already knew what he would say. Not statistics, not threats, but truths the Empire could not digest without consequence. He thought of Earth, not the skyscrapers or stations, but the protests, the chaos, the debates, the fury and forgiveness that coexisted within one species. Humanity was not consistent, but it was driven. It erred, learned, and erred again. But when it chose to stand for something, it stood until the ground cracked. The Empire had no such legacy. It had fear. It had memory. But it had no future that others wanted to join, only a machine demanding fuel. Tomorrow, Elias would speak not to persuade the Empire, but to expose it. He would force it to look in a mirror. He would remind the galaxy that peace wasn't lost, it was stolen. And he would show them the thief. No fleet, no soldiers, only resolve. And sometimes that was enough to turn a system. Tomorrow, the galaxy would listen, whether the Empire liked it or not. The tribunal chamber was prepared with calculated grandeur. It was no court of justice, only theater. 1,000 species watched the broadcast in real time. Every neutral system tuned in. The Empire wanted a spectacle, a final humiliation before war. Elias saw it for what it was, a final opportunity to speak the truth where everyone could hear it. High Chancellor Verzor began with a declaration. Humanity has violated nothing, and yet it grovels here. Their weakness offends us. Their words delay the inevitable. This tribunal is a courtesy, one they will not enjoy again. Elias waited, face unmoved, until the Chancellor gestured for him to speak. He stepped forward, voice steady. You began this war with a lie, he said. That strength means taking what you can. That peace is a weakness. That silence is power. But I am here to show you what real power looks like. He paused, scanning the gathered council. Power is restraint. Power is principle. Power is when you have the strength to destroy and choose not to. That's why humanity is here. Not because we cannot fight, but because we choose to offer words before weapons. The Chancellor sneered. Poetic. Futile. Do you think your speech will reverse a fleet? I think my speech isn't aimed at you, Elias replied. It's aimed at everyone else watching, those who still wonder if peace is worth defending. He turned from the council, speaking directly to the camera feed. You've seen the Empire burn treaties. You've seen worlds fall. They claim inevitability, as if domination were nature's law. But the truth is this. Tyranny only lasts when it's tolerated. And today, we stop tolerating. When the counselors cut in, you assume others share your values. They don't. Some do, Elias said, and more will, because the Empire's legacy is built on silence, and we're done being quiet. He gestured to a datapad on the table before him. As I speak, over 30 worlds are refusing your latest conscription demands. 5 trade routes have collapsed because your own allies are defecting. You rule with fear, but fear is brittle. The moment it cracks, everything underneath shatters. The chamber shifted. Whispers. Glances exchanged. Varazor scowled. Lies, he spat. No, Elias said calmly. Timing. He pressed a button. A coordinated data burst hit the tribunal's central feed. Live footage appeared. Armed rebellions igniting across systems once held tight in the Empire's grasp. The signal wasn't human. It came from within their own ranks. Officers turning. Ships defecting. Cities uprising. We didn't come to fight alone, Elias said. We came as the spark. An aide rushed to the Chancellor's side. Quiet words were exchanged. The Chancellor's expression didn't change, but the room felt different. Something uncontrollable had entered the equation. The Empire was being challenged not by force, but by example. Elias hadn't come to beg. He'd come to remind the galaxy what choice looked like. This is terrorism, one of the elder counselors growled. This is truth, Elias answered. You thought your strength would silence opposition. Instead, it exposed your fear of it. The more you tighten your grip, the more worlds slip through your fingers. Varazor stood. Enough. End this broadcast. Detain him. Guards moved, but paused at the Chancellor's gesture. Even he could feel the moment fraying. To kill Elias now would confirm everything he'd said. It would mark the Empire not as strong, but terrified. Elias met the Chancellor's eyes. You don't have to listen to me. But they are. He gestured to the sky, and they're deciding what kind of galaxy they want to live in. You came here to die, the Chancellor said. You'll get your wish. Elias didn't blink. I came here so others wouldn't have to. He was taken from the chamber under guard, but not in shame. The feed had already spread. The damage was done. The Empire had tried to host a performance, and instead gave Elias a platform. And he had used it not to flatter humanity, but to ignite something bigger than any fleet. In detention, he waited without fear. Not because he was safe, but because his part was finished. The words had landed. The doubt had spread. Now it would grow in silence, beneath the surface of every imperial stronghold, every suppressed colony, every unaligned world waiting for proof they weren't alone. Outside, the Empire scrambled to regain control. Inside, Elias closed his eyes and repeated the one truth that guided him from the start. They expected fire. We brought voice. And they never saw it coming. The cell was silent. Not with peace, but with calculation. Elias sat still, watching nothing, listening to the distant hum of the Empire's machine, struggling to repair its cracked facade. He hadn't been tortured. Not yet. The Empire was still deciding what to do with him, uncertain whether killing him would silence the spark or pour fuel on it. The answer came sooner than expected. A message arrived, not through official channel, but a whispered conversation between two guards unaware the audio panel still functioned. 6 more worlds had declared independence. 2 Imperial dreadnoughts had mutinied mid-flight. The dominoes were falling, and they didn't begin with rebellion. They began with doubt. A shadow moved across the cell's viewplate. Then the door opened. High Chancellor Varazor stood alone. You've cost me more than I expected, he said, voice low. But not enough. Elias stood. Then you still don't understand what's coming. You mistake ripples for waves, the Chancellor replied. We've crushed movements stronger than this. No, Elias said. You've crushed movements that fought you on your terms. You're facing something different now. The Chancellor narrowed his eyes. And what would that be? A war of meaning. You brought force. We brought direction. One destroys. The other recruits. The Chancellor stepped closer, tension coiled in every word. And what if I offer you survival? Return to Earth. Disavow your speech. Call off your rebellion. I'll spare your world for now. Elias didn't flinch. There's no survival in silence. Not anymore. You're a fool, Varazor said. Your kind should have stayed small. Too late, Elias said. We grew. Not in size. In conviction. The Chancellor stared for a long moment, then turned without another word and left. Hours passed. Then days. No verdict. No execution. Instead, Elias was moved to a diplomatic suite, still under guard. The galaxy outside continued to fracture. Messages leaked. Anonymous transmissions citing Elias's words reached border systems. A phrase began to circulate across languages and channels. Strength isn't silence. Strength is standing. By the 5th day, the Accord sent a formal transmission. Though the treaty had collapsed, its remnants were reassembling, driven by mutual interest in resisting imperial expansion. Not out of love for humanity, but out of recognition. Someone had stood when no one else dared, and it worked. Earth's leadership contacted Elias directly. A single-line message, you've shifted the tide. Orders? He responded, hold your fire. The Empire is already burning from within. The Chancellor didn't respond again. Not personally, but Imperial broadcasts changed. The propaganda sharpened. The tone shifted. The Empire began to frame itself as the victim, the galaxy as ungrateful. It was damage control, and it wasn't working. Elias requested release. He didn't demand. He didn't bargain. He simply stated the truth. Keep me, and I become a monument. Release me, and you disappear behind me. The Empire released him. The transport back to neutral space was silent. No threats, no words, just the quiet resignation of a regime that had lost control of the narrative. Elias didn't celebrate. He knew better. This wasn't victory, it was ignition. A new chapter had begun, not a conclusion. Back on Earth, he refused parades. No medals, no declarations. Instead, he addressed the assembly with the same calm certainty he'd used before. We are not conquerors, but we are not prey. The galaxy is watching, and now they know. When peace is shattered, we answer not with surrender, but with resolve. Fierce, unrelenting, and clear. The room stood in silence. Not in hesitation, respect. Across the stars, systems aligned. Not with Earth, but with the idea Earth had stood for. Unity without domination. Voice without violence, until violence became necessary. Not a utopia, but a choice. The Empire still existed. Its fleets still moved. But the myth of its inevitability had died the moment Elias spoke. And from that death, something older and more enduring began to return. Not just defiance, not just rebellion. Hope. Not because humanity was perfect, but because when a moment came, it stood alone, so others didn't have to. The war would come, but when it did, the galaxy would no longer wonder if resistance was possible. It would know it had already begun.